Hello, sisters and brothers. Our devotional for today, for July 5, is a reflection on My Utmost for His Highest, a series of devotionals written and compiled by Oswald Chambers. You can always find the link for the daily devotional at utmost.org. And for today's devotional, we again return to Psalm 37, and I'm going to read the first 6 verses of Psalm 37. Beginning at verse 1, "Do not fret because of those who are evil, or be envious of those who do wrong. For like the grass they will soon wither, like green plants they will soon die and die away. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Take a delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will do this. He will make your righteous rewards shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun." Chambers titles this devotional, "Don't Plan Without God," looking at verse 5. "Commit your way to the Lord, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass." Don't plan without God. God seems to have a delightful way of upsetting the plans we have made when we have not taken him into account. We get ourselves into circumstances that were not chosen by God, and suddenly we realize that we have been making our plans without him, that we have not even considered him to be a vital living factor in the planning of our lives. And yet the only thing that will keep us from even the possibility of worrying is to bring God in as the greatest factor in all of our planning. In spiritual issues, it is customary for us to put God first, but we tend to think that it is inappropriate and unnecessary to put him first in the practical, everyday issues of our lives. If we have the idea that we have to put on our, quote, spiritual face before we can come near to God, then we will never come near to him. We must come as we are. Don't plan with a concern for evil in mind. Does God really mean for us to plan without taking the evil around us into account? Love thinks no evil, from 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 and 5. Love is not ignorant of the existence of evil, but it does not take it into account as a factor in planning. When we were apart from God, as we did take evil into account, doing all of our planning with it in mind, and we tried to reason out all of our work from its standpoint. Don't plan with a rainy day in mind. You cannot hoard things for a rainy day if you are truly trusting Christ. Jesus said, "Let not your heart be troubled." John 14, verse 1. God will not keep your heart from being troubled. It is a command, let not. To do it, continually pick yourself up, even if you fall 101 times a day, until you get into the habit of putting God first and planning with him in mind. How many of your plans for today did you take to God before you executed them? It's a pretty low number for me. I wish it was higher, especially reading this devotional now. But as Chambers points out, we're supposed to plan with God for the everyday practical things of our life. And sometimes it sounds silly. I found it to sound silly, or at least I thought it was silly. When I would hear people say things, well, if the Lord wills, I'll be there. And I don't know, I had this immature spirituality where it thought, don't I just need to ask God for the big things? But the person who would say something like that, "I'll see you again if God wills," they were just simply acknowledging that God is the orchestrator, the grand weaver, the grand designer for our lives, and we are to make our plans accordingly. We are to plan according to what we have brought before God. And as the other subsections of this devotional point out, we don't do it with evil in mind, and we don't do it planning for a rainy day. So what does it mean that we don't plan with evil in mind? Well, it means that we don't have to try and steer around those things that we might see as potential detours. We need to be wise, but we need to plan according to what God has called us to do. God will take care of the rest. And we also don't need to consider having a rainy day. Well, I don't know if God's going to provide for me down the road, so I'm going to just hold back right now. God has always provided. God is always faithful. He will not fail us in that regard. So as you're thinking about your daily plans, your plans coming up for the next week, bring those to God and surrender those to God and see how it goes for you compared to when it's only your own plans. Thank you as always for listening. Be safe and stay well.